welcome back not welcome back.
Sort
Welcome
of,
for the
kind of,
first
sort of.
time to Pure Michigan Sports, and that is topic number one. It's Christian Peck-Dimit. It's Alex Deimel. Got to make sure I'm pointing on the right side of the video here. We have a new show. We have the same show, but a
It's
new
the same
name and
show.
a new
We
logo.
we did a bit of a rebrand. Sports teams go through their rebrands all the time. We're just doing the same thing. It's not
We're
going to
not
change
moving
up
to a new
much.
city.
And for our viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube or TikTok, Instagram, wherever the hell you might be watching, if you're not listening to it just on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you look up in that corner up there, you'll see what, believe it or not, was painstaking work for someone that has no experience in graphic design, creating that shitty logo up there. But no, we've got our rebrand. We've got some new segments for you guys, and I'm pretty excited. I don't know about
As
you,
you
man.
should be. I'm
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Hopefully you guys are too. We were ACL. We lost our L. Figured it was time for a rebrand. It's going to be Michigan focused. It always has been. That's why it's really not any change. But it's the Pure Michigan Sports Show, and for by Michigan sports fans, for Michigan sports fans. We both are University of Michigan sports fans, but we will talk some MSU. We'll talk Ferris and Hillsdale and some high school when it's real relevant and all the good stuff, and obviously focus on the big four up in the D, down in the
Yeah,
D.
absolutely. And I guess we'll get right into it then. Going with that half dozen segment, which basically you've got your four main Detroit sports and then both Michigan and Michigan State for the half dozen for those of you that didn't catch up with that. But I guess we'll start on the diamond with the Tigers.
Them
The
Bruins.
Tigers, who I don't know whether or not to be happy that I can't watch these
Mm,
games. I think we're on like a 5 or 6 game win streak right now, or losing streak. I wish
losing
we were
streak.
on a
We're
winning
definitely
streak.
not winning.
Um, and I feel like it's just Groundhog Day for me at this rate, where I get on
Hmm.
and I say the same exact shit you know, every single week. And the one thing that it stuck out to me and was like, is there anything? I was sitting earlier today doing prep and I was like, is there anything different I can talk about with Tigers baseball? And the one thing is different yet the same. Do you want to take a wild guess? And I know you're not the biggest baseball stats guy, but do you want to take a wild guess of what Riley Green, who's supposedly our best offensive player,
Hmm.
best guy in the field, what his batting average has been in the last 15 games?
Last 15. 234.
169.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize it
10
was that
hits,
bad.
10 hits and 59 at bats with 18 strikeouts.
That's ugly. That's so
Dude,
tough.
that is unfortunately that's the common denominator. It's not like he's the
Mhm.
only one that's struggling. And it goes back to the main frustration that our starting pitching, they're playing their asses off. Like Jack Flaherty has a 3.84 ERA and only has one win, and he started 10 games. Reese Olson has a 2.16, has been balling this year,
Mhm.
is 0 and 5.
We sort
Yeah,
of
I
talked
don't know.
about this, you know?
I don't.
It's
Yeah,
been one or the other, but it's been a lot of one and not a lot of the other for a while now.
yeah, and it does blow my mind because if you'll go and look on any ESPN, MLB stats, anything like that, like the pitching is in the top half of the league, which I don't know that anyone. I think the expectations weren't at the very bottom, but they weren't as good as they've been. I think
Mhm.
with a couple of rocky starts, and I think Kenta Maeda's still not all the way there. You could say make the same argument for Manning and a couple guys in the pen, but I've been fairly impressed with the pitching. It's just when it's this bipolar hitting where we're going to put up 13 runs
Mhm.
on the Diamondbacks because Scooble's on the mound and we got to make him look good. But then 2 days later, we are struggling to get on base. So again, when something changes, we'll make that the theme of the podcast because nothing's changing so far. It's just kind of the same old. And I guess that's what we get for making it week by week. But I guess that's where we're sitting right now. You, Mr. Pistons fan, have some pretty big news on that front, though.
We do have some good stuff. The Detroit Pistons, and it's been in discussion for a while where they would go, have a new president of basketball ops. Trajan Langdon. I don't know how to pronounce Trajan. Don't know. But I'm gonna have to figure it out because he is now our president of basketball ops, the former New Orleans Pelicans GM. Played 3 seasons with the Cavs way back, was an assistant under Spears over with the Nets for a while as well. And my biggest thing here is that it is hopefully the start of a domino effect because we talked with Bryce Simon and we got some Pistons insider info that essentially everyone in the Twitter universe right now is calling for Monty, is calling to get Troy Weaver out of there. Want a new GM, want a new coach, maybe even wants a new owner. They need change at the top because they feel like something has to give because the rebuild has lasted far too long and no one has gotten better. So, this is, and evidently always has been, step one in that. Get a new president of basketball ops. Then, if we're going to get a new GM, if Monty's going to get bought out and we're going to have to pay a huge sum to get that done, if those things are to happen, it's going to be now. And Pistons fans have been calling for it for a while, but it's nice to know that it potentially is still here. I do want to cede some of my Pistons time because it's not huge news over to the Tigers just to say really quickly that I have a very fun stat for Alex. He talked about the starting pitching's been better than the hitting has been, and
Yeah,
the
see,
hitting hasn't made up for it.
here's my thing though. Is this one of those fun stats where you're gonna tell me it's gonna be fun, and then I'm
Oh,
gonna
it's
have
not fun at
my
all.
head in my lap? And yeah, that's what I thought. But give it to me.
So you mentioned the bipolarness of the bats. 25 runs in 3 games versus the D-backs, turned around 10 total runs over the next 4 games. Are now on a 5-game losing streak. Get this, it's a double for nothing. 4 straight games where our starters have recorded a loss, including Scoob's first of the season. And now, in total, the Tigers have lost 14 of their last 19 games, 5 and 14 over their last 19. This might be, especially given that one of those series was against the Marlins and that the Rockies had a 7-game win streak a couple of weeks ago. This might be the coldest team in baseball right now. The Detroit Tigers have been that bad, dropped to now a -8 run differential.
Now,
Just
I do
brutal.
want I want the emphasis on that cold aspect for a minute because that it implies correctly that it's a streak
Yeah.
and that there is the opportunity to get hot again. It's not like this team has refused to hit all year. Like we have it's all of a sudden out of nowhere you'll see those 13 run games where it's just where it's all the hitting in one game and it takes up, the bats for the rest of the month, the rest of the week, whatever the hell it's going to be. I do think it's one of those things where it is the emphasis, and you can't let it go long. They've got a weekend series against a Blue Jays team with what I thought had a fair amount of talent. Doesn't seem to be doing too well either. But you've got, it's still fairly early in the season. But
Third of the way
it can't
through.
continue. It's you, and if you're Scott Harris, you got to be thinking what's the next move. Is this someone we
Mhm.
got to go out and get someone to help us hitting in the before the trade deadline? Are we just still going to focus on the minor leagues? Whatever it's going to be. And I think that's where I think a lot of Tigers fans seem to, or at least myself, I'm pretty lost. I don't know what the plan seems to be. If are we just going to allow bad hitting? I don't know. And I get well, and then on the flip side, I had a question for you with the Pistons.
Yeah.
So this Langdon would have been around the time of Zion, or is that incorrect?
So yeah, he's been the last 5 years. So I think his first year he drafted Zion, which was more or less a shoe-in pick. But
Yeah.
yes, why do you ask?
So my question being, is this You talked about this domino effect and stuff like that. Is it around a level of excitement that you had when Troy Weaver came, when Monty Williams came? Is it, less, more? I guess like initial reaction, like do you think this is actually the start of a domino effect? And then I guess now looking back at it, did the Monty Williams money ever make sense? So I guess there's a two-part to that question.
Real quickly, just want to correct myself. I think it was in his second year, not his first year
Second
that he
year.
drafted
Okay.
Zion. So I made that mistake. But that is a really good question because um, it seems like so many people are very quick to jump on Monty just looking at the win loss record. And it's maybe easier than in other sports to see on a basketball court the effect of coaching just because rotations with only 5 players, rotations are more evident. Team morale is more evident. I mean, it sounds stupid, but you can see the players' faces and body language a lot easier than in other sports where they wear helmets in hockey and football, and there's so many more on the field, and there's so many more coaches to deal with all the players in football, in these other sports. All this to say, you can see the effect of coaching a little bit easier, and I think you saw a negative effect. I think it was almost a take the money and run thing, and you get that. You ever watch Breaking Bad?
A little
Better
bit.
Call
Not
Saul.
not I haven't seen all of it, but I
There's
think
a
I've seen
there's a
like the
meme
first
of
2
the
seasons.
Huel, I think is his name, of the big fat guy laying on the pile of money in it, and you almost get this thing, uh, this idea that Monty phoned it in because he made such a great culture when he was in Phoenix in this brilliant offense. Of course, he had more talented offensive players by a mile in Phoenix, but he built up this whole scheme in this thing that worked so beautifully. And all it takes is one season in Detroit where he has the worst roster in basketball, by far the least talented roster to touch a court in the NBA this season. And he turns around and says, we're going to play 5, 6, 7, 8 straight minutes with only bench players on the court. That's unheard of. There are contending teams that don't do that. There are teams with the best benches in the league that don't do that. And we do that every game, and it never works. And Killian Hayes started for half this season. He's now been waived and won't be touched. He's going to go play in Europe somewhere. Hopefully, good for him. I don't hate the guy or anything. Hopefully, he'll go back to France and have some fun at home. But he didn't deserve to be on an NBA roster, period. And somehow he's starting for a team that heading into the season wanted to go to the play in. He's starting for like 40 games, 30 games this year. Roundabout way, you got me on my angry Monty
Yeah.
tangent. I do. I wouldn't be surprised if Monty leaves or not. Is ushered out the door. There was a report, and we don't know how true it is. It was sort of one of those like vague, like report, and there was no real credit to it, which happens far too often in journalism today. Um, that the
You can
Pistons
say
were
that again.
the Pistons were open to firing Monty Williams. Does that mean he actually will leave? I kind of doubt it. That's in the back of my mind. I'm just thinking we paid him all this money. He has the prestige. He has that sort of established nature in the NBA and history of contending. I doubt we kick him out after a year. I wouldn't be surprised, but it would. I don't think that's what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair, and I think they're kind of in I think that's kind of where it was a little bit. I wouldn't make the Avila comparison with the Tigers because that was definitely a different situation. But, I guess and then transitioning from that, obviously not a ton of Wings news,
hmm
considering it they're in the off season. But there was some reports of Patrick Kane possibly uniting with Chicago. And I haven't really wrapped my head around this one. There was I believe it was out of The Athletic. Listen, it was a long time ago, but the Red Wings and the Blackhawks did not like each other a long time ago, and I think that's where my mind immediately goes. Um, I mean, I had a very tough time rooting for Kane or Tays or any of them. Uh, in kind of that, prime time Blackhawks dynasty couple years. Not that they won that much, but so be it. That would be hard. That would just be very tough to see him. It would be tough enough to see him in a jersey that isn't a Wings one, but it would be especially tough to see him go back to Chicago, um, full well knowing that he was a huge piece of the puzzle for us this year and very well could be next year.
Mm.
Um, obviously we weren't able to get it done and get him into the playoffs, but I don't know what the reasoning would be. I don't think he'd really even. I don't think he'd win that much in Chicago, so I
You
don't know what the
yeah, you
point would
said it.
be.
You were
Um,
mentioning we didn't get him into the playoffs. With Chicago? I don't think so.
no, I mean he could play with Bedard, and Bedard's a superstar, so there's that aspect
Oh
of it.
boy, and win
Um,
35 games.
yeah, so I don't know. Obviously, it's all conjecture. It is what it is, but and then obviously OTAs with the Lions. At least something to feel good about. Even though we've got a couple months. Um, what was it? What was the Dan Campbell quote I saw today? I'm only thinking Super Bowl. I'm not even thinking
Not
bust.
even
I
thinking
mean,
bust.
at this point, like I'm in like a perpetual stage of being fired up just by like looking at the guy.
Yeah.
Like I think it's like there's nothing he can say that's gonna blow me out of the water anymore. Just because, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Because now he set this level of expectation that I think he can keep to, but of just constantly being like that hardo that's just gonna keep like have your blood boil in the best way possible. Um, from here until he's done coaching for the team.
We do love us some MCDC on I was gonna abbreviate it, but PMS don't sound so good. Pure Michigan Sports on the show here. We love us some MCDC, but I've got some. Let's talk specific players real quick. Got some quotes for you. One, these are both from Danny Rogers, who reported these. Thank you, Danny. One from MCDC called JMO a man on a mission in the most improved here in the spring. And then one from Aaron Glenn, of course, our defensive coordinator, called Jack Campbell coming here into his second year. A grown man has transformed his body and is leading out on the field here during spring ball. Thoughts on those? Do we see improvement with JMO? Obviously, people love to highlight him and to point out him out as a speedster and a great culture guy. And obviously, he's got a lot of excuses on his side with his injuries and with the suspension sort of hampering him early. But I don't want to be the bearer of bad news or the negative asshole here. But he's got less than 400 career receiving yards in 2 years. Let's pump the brakes on calling this guy, our answer at wide receiver three. Do you feel that's
Is
too negative a
Well,
take?
do you think he's referring to him as the answer, or do you think he's referring to like literally just he's a man on a mission? He wants to be here. He wants to get back at it. Like, his knee his knee was fucked up, and they took a huge chance on drafting him. And I don't think it's necessarily paid off yet, but I don't think that's to say that it won't. Um, and it's also it's easy to forget talent like that when you have the caliber of an Amon Ra, when you have Sam Laporta, who just had a hell of a year as well, when you've got Jameer and Monty in the backfield,
Mm.
and you've got just so many pieces all over the board. So I don't know that the answer is really what I took from that quote. I like the fact that they're hyping him up. There, it's if that's the case, then he's showing out, and again it's OTAs. It's not the regular season.
Mm.
Um, so we'll see, but I don't really mind, hearing stuff like that. My question is of all the people to talk about, I guess from an Aaron Glenn standpoint, I do appreciate like the Jack Campbell talk, considering he's a key part of the defense, but we drafted mostly defensive guys, and that's not the takeaway quote is about one of them.
I I don't know. I mean, Jack had sort of an up and down year. I think first off, let me say I think you're probably right on JMO. I think it was maybe too negative a take on my part. All I'm trying to say, and I'm going to loop this back in here. All I'm trying to say is JMO has a make it break it year. You know what I mean? I think this third year, he's fully healthy, no suspension, all the way through spring ball. He's allowed to be with the team, which he wasn't during his gambling thing. I think this is a year, especially with Josh Reynolds leaving, where it's big for him. He needs to step into a bigger role, have more production. And I think on the other side, what we're talking about with Jack Campbell, not specifically him, I think this is an Aaron Glenn prove it year. I think with
Oh,
the
big
amount
time,
we
big
invested
time.
defensively, both in the draft and a little bit through free agency, I'd be surprised to see him still with us if there's any sort of prolonged shittiness on
Yeah,
defense.
let's go back to that JMO thing though, because you have to remember the talent that's on the offensive side of the ball. Like his over under is for touchdowns alone this year is only like 3.5. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad number considering like yes, the depth chart for at wideout isn't necessarily that deep. And yes, we did lose Josh Reynolds, but this is a team that's gonna mix it up. And at the same time, this is not a team that's going to put him like I would not expect nearly as much production as Amon Ra, as I would Monty, as I would Jameer. They're gonna, put the ball in different people's hands. And I don't know that make it or break it is the way I would put it necessarily. Um, because you have to, it is his first full year. There are guys that don't go through what he did, that don't go through injury and don't go through some gambling thing that don't produce shit.
Here's the thing: you got to take this relative to what the pick that we spent on him. Um, Not counting DPJ, who maybe has a bigger role. I doubt it. I think he'll sort of still be a punt guy. Uh, our three receivers on the depth chart right now: Amon Ra, Khalif Raymond, Jamison Williams. He needs to be bigger in that role because you're exactly right. Hugely talented offense. But guess what we lacked last year? A downfield threat, man. A vertical dude who could burn people at all times. Every offense needs it. The Lions were fine without it. Josh Reynolds gave you a little bit of that, not really. I'd love JMO to step into that role, be a wide receiver. He might have to be a wide receiver two caliber guy. Hasn't even proved he can be a three. That's all I'm saying is this is a
Yeah.
big year for him.
That's fair. That's fair. And it is a big year. It's his time to shine. But I'm not I guess my thing is I don't see myself writing him off if he doesn't
Sure.
perform up to standard this year. He's a young player. He's got a lot of room to grow. Um, and then I don't know. I guess not too much on the Michigan or Michigan State front. I do have Michigan will come in on a segment coming up here in a second. But did you want to touch on Celtics or Mavs or any of the NBA playoffs?
Absolutely, I do. So we finished up. Alex introed it. I'll outro it. The half dozen. That's going to be the meat of the show. Really is talking about the half dozen here, which is of course the four Detroit teams: Michigan, Michigan State. Those are our half dozen. The teams that we're going to be focusing on most in the show. It's what we have, but we're just sort of all grouping it together. And absolutely, the playoff picture has been a beautiful thing to look at as of late. We'll start in the East. I really doubt that the Seas don't go up three. I'll be honest.
Did you see that video of and I don't know if it was fake or not, but someone apparently got Halliburton on FaceTime from the locker room after he got hurt the other day.
No, I didn't
Did you
see
see?
that.
All right, I gotta send this to you. But apparently, like it was like still mid game, and apparently
Mm.
some chick was FaceTiming him from the locker room. I was like, you've got to be kidding me! Like, what are we doing?
It's it's
But
been yeah, that hamstring injury's been hampering him for a while. He missed 10 games, I think, in January with it. And that's largely been what people have pointed to since his post in season tournament production and the drop in it. Not that he's been terrible, but he hasn't been the phenomenal level of performer that he was in the beginning of this season. The fact that it is not only still around, but kept him from finishing what was last night's game, Thursday night, last night as we're recording this. I I don't know. It just gives me more cause to go Celtics in five. I think they can steal one in Indiana. I don't think it's game three. I think it's game four once Halliburton's fully healthy, which I don't trust him to be in game three. ultimately, if you're the Pacers, you have to let, and I think recency bias leaks in here, where you go, shit, Hallie's hurt. We're getting dogged. The Celtics are beating the tar out of us, even though they did go to OT in game one. And you sort of say, all right, we're screwed. Back to the drawing board. Important to remember, you're in the Eastern Conference fucking finals as a 6 seed who has no business being there.
Yeah.
This is just a nice forward-looking building block for a young, talented team who took a risk going and getting Pascal Siakam, but he has been great in these big moments in the playoffs down the stretch of this season. He missed
Is
4
that
shots
a
last
is
night.
that a long-term move for them, or is his contract expiring, or what was the thought there?
I don't know if his contract expiring.
That's a good
It'd be
question.
perfect if he could re-sign with them. He's been a dog. He's been a bucket for a long time. He only missed 4 shots last night. I think watching that game, I missed more than 4 shots. He was he was awesome. He just can't do it alone, and I think it's important on the one hand to say the Celtics are that good. They're favorites for a reason. They have length everywhere, and they can have Tatum shoot tour dates and still beat the tar out of teams. But also important to say the Pacers are
He
taking a nice
he
step
is
forward.
a free agent after this season, it looks like, because he signed that 4-year extension with the Raptors in 2020.
Mm,
So, we shall see. I mean, hey, he got him there. I don't think like you said, I don't think anybody expected them to make it that far.
I'd
And
be
then
surprised if
obviously
they don't resign. To be honest, I'd like
yeah,
him to see him resign.
and then,
But yeah,
obviously Western side, you know, was this more or less expected? I mean, I think most people had Denver still in at this point, but
my pick was Denver. That's where all my money was. So yeah, I guess the T Wolves went down or took them down since we last were on. That's surprising. Obviously, but this team was quite literally built from the ground up to beat Denver, and they did exactly that. I think that causes you some issues in game one where you were fucking gassed. Those
yeah,
guys were dogging it, especially in the fourth quarter. Even Anthony Edwards admitted after the game, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but damn it, we were a little tired. They looked it. They looked all 48 minutes of that game to be gassed. And they really just fell down in the fourth when the Mavs stepped up and hit big shots. The ultimately, if you watch the T Wolves in the fourth quarter, there was zero offense run. It was just like try to get something. Individual defense from the Mavs was great, and then it was just like huck up a triple. It was like here, kick it out to Cat. He'll shoot a 40-foot or 30-foot triple at the end of the shot clock. And Edwards comes off a screen, rises up, contested triple. It was all 3-point attempts. I don't think Anthony Edwards took more than 5 shots in the fourth quarter, which obviously you can't have. And I think all but one of them were threes. This was a tired team. I think it's one that you expect to get your legs, a team that you expect to get its legs under it and even it up at one apiece. But that game one win changes the complexion of this series. I
yeah,
had T Wolves in 6 going in, hoping it would go to 7 because I think this is going to be super fun. I think that shifts a little bit. The T Wolves are still favored in the series. I checked that before we started the show, but the Mavs are that good. And
yeah,
I think this was sort of my thoughts going into the show was essentially maybe my mind went right to was OKC that young? Did people just expect them to get run over sometime before the finals so much that they maybe don't give the Mavs the credit that they deserve
yeah,
for taking down the best team in the West. The West's 1 seed, the best conference in basketball, the best team in it, the team that beat out the T Wolves in the regular season, the team that beat out the Nuggets in the regular season, lost in 6 games to Dallas. And all anyone wants to talk about is Ant Edwards and the T Wolves, as they should, absolutely deserve the hype. They've been great, but I think because of it, it sort of allows the Mavs to go under the radar. And you sort of saw in game one them make a statement where they're like, we absolutely deserve to be here. Clearly, they do. Luca hit big shots. Kyrie was great end to end. And obviously, the other guys, the centers, Dan Gafford and Lively, who sort of split time in that big spot, were great. I think this is going to be a super fun series and a defensive series at that.
Yeah. Do you think either of them has a chance against the beat or against the Celtics, or is it just you're
I
playing to lose?
actually, I, I hate to do this to you because you and everyone else has the Celtics because they're favored by a mile to win this thing. I think whoever makes it out of I think we watched the NBA Finals in Nuggets T Wolves. I really do. I
Really?
think I absolutely, absolutely. I know that they're young, and we saw, of course, with OKC, who I just mentioned, that youth and an experience in the playoffs matters.
Yeah.
Having not been in these big moments before matters. But you know who it doesn't matter to? Ant Edwards and the fucking T Wolves, who just beat the reigning champs in a game 7 with a trip to the Western Conference Finals on the line. That should be the biggest moment possible. That should be where you sort of shy away from the light. And maybe Ant Edwards did shot a tour date in game 7, but he still contributed. Cat was amazing. Rudy Gobert was awesome. Jaden McDaniels, as he was all series, perfect. I think whoever comes out of the West has, at the very least, a very, very good shot to beat the Celtics and do it in 6. That might be too
Obviously,
optimistic, but
obviously, we do have the NHL playoffs going as well right now. Not a ton, honestly, to say other than that Dallas Edmonton opening game was just unreal. I mean, I can't imagine being an Edmonton or a Dallas fan just because I think I would have had about 10 heart attacks by then, by
dude,
the
it
end of the
had
game.
me watching hockey. It was that
Yeah,
good.
no, it was insane. I mean, both teams just like, and two of the best, like overall, like when it comes to like just having good
Mm,
skaters, Edmonton and Dallas. So that's a great series. Obviously, Florida continues to dominate. I mean, I don't really love to see either of those Eastern Conference teams win as a Wings fan, but it is what it is. So definitely we'll keep the looks on that. I do want to transition into one of our new segments we're trying out. On this day in Michigan sports history, which it might become, on this week, on, maybe even on this decade if we're running out of stuff. I don't know. But we're lucky today on this day in sports history. Francisco Rodriguez, who, if you aren't a baseball guy, was a closer. He retired a couple years ago now, but he had a very good career with the Angels. Came to the Tigers in 26. He was with the Tigers for the 2016 and 2017 seasons, and I want to say it was that 2016 on May 24th, which is when we're recording this. He recorded his 400th save, becoming just the sixth pitcher in Major League Baseball history to reach that milestone. Later that year, on August 29th, he recorded his 423rd save, passing Billy Wagner for fifth all time. Um, and I believe he's now on the Hall of Fame ballot. Yeah, he fell to 7.8% in 2024, but he can still get elected in the future, which is ironic. His nickname is K Rod, and on our outline, and Christian had texted me earlier and was like, "Who the hell is K Rod?" Um, Obviously, his last name being on Rodriguez. Baseball already had an A Rod or A Royd, depending on how you want to say it, so they went with K Rod for strikeouts, I guess. And then we also have, I guess, a little bit of a reminiscent. It wasn't today, but on Wednesday. Wednesday was the anniversary of the hiring of Juwan Howard, who, as Michigan fans all know, is no longer with the Michigan Wolverines, is now an assistant with the Brooklyn Nets. But just a little bit of reminiscing on, there was just so many expectations, such high expectations for a Fab Five member to come back and lead this team to glory, and it just all went to shit. You might be muted.
I muted myself. I'm an idiot.
I
Um,
didn't know
it
if it was me or not, so I didn't want to say anything.
it gives shades of Jim Harbaugh, almost with Jawan, where at the time Harbaugh came out of the womb shitting out 10-win seasons for Michigan football, and you're thinking, another great coming back to the program, excited to do it, hype it back up. No, yeah, went to shit, fought a bunch of people, and now he's out. what a ridiculous. You know, he did leave. Obviously, he's got the Kobe connection through Jalen Rose. Did leave with a Kobe memorial going 8-24. So we appreciate the shout out to Kobe.
I didn't know where the hell you were going with that one. I just lost my hat on
Speaking
that one, but
speaking of shout
holy
outs,
cow.
shout out Buddy Morehouse, I believe it was, who suggested that we do a segment like this.
Yes.
Was it Buddy?
Yes, it was. Yes, it
A
was.
former professor of the two of ours way back, and he
Legend.
suggested
Absolute legend.
absolute legend, Emmy nominated documentary
Yeah.
filmmaker,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
think twice. And he suggested the On This Day in Michigan History to Alex, and yeah, great little thing to look back on the sports history of this great state. Couple of quotes really quick.
Yeah, while you're
Uh,
saying them, I'm gonna get my hat back.
See, Alex can't go without his hat for too long. It's gonna, it's like when I lose my phone or my wallet, that's Alex losing his hat. Um,
Yeah,
I
no. Guys,
uh,
there's a reason you don't ever see me without a hat on.
got got some quotes from K Rod here after picking up that last out in his 400th save. He said, "I don't know if I cried, screamed, or laughed. A lot of things going through my mind in that moment. Still just trying to soak it in." And this is I think the good one here. Um, Told a reporter after the game, we could spend an entire night going through it. It's a lot of sacrifice that I've made, obviously, for my entire career. This is a quote directly from K Rod: "For my entire family, my wife, my kids, not spending time with them. We could go on and on and on. But all the hard work paid off. So I've just got to continue like that. And hopefully, one of my kids follows in my footsteps and they could get it done too. Congratulations." Of course, to K Rod, and I guess congrats to Jawan too. I don't know if I'm gonna extend that
Yeah,
to
we
him,
don't
but
need to go with that one. But I do want to tell a kind of a funny story on that note. As we were preparing for this segment, was going through and I found one of those old calendars that you tear off this thing and it's got a new fact like of on this day or whatever. And I just happened to find it about 20 minutes before we started recording, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go. Let me see if I can find May 24th. And I didn't find anything Detroit relevant on May 24th, but on May 18th, and this is, bear with me, on the May 18th sheet was a story of a June 30th game, and you'll see why I'm going to get through it. So it's one of those things where the question was what was the longest game in football history?
oh,
The longest game in pro football history, the Los Angeles Express defeated the Michigan Panthers 27-21 in the third overtime of a USFL playoff game before a crowd of only 7,964 at Memorial Coliseum in Los Angeles on June 30th, 1984. The Express blew an early 10-0 lead to fall behind 21-13 before rallying to force overtime with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Yada yada yada. Apparently, that's the longest as of 2022. And I saw Michigan Panthers and got excited, and then realized how dumb it was, and realized it was so dumb that I had to bring it up on the
had
pod.
to bring it up, and it was a Panthers loss too. So
Yes, exactly,
shout out the
exactly.
Panthers.
Been
Oh, that's
losing since
brutal.
day one, I guess.
Yeah,
They can kick though. They can kick.
that's awesome. Uh, Always great to look back on some Michigan history, and so a nice chance to do that. And we've got our finishing move here, our coup de grace, to end the show with
Oh,
picks
damn.
of the week, and the flying elbow of this show is we've told you for weeks that we're gonna start um, recording our records, our wins and losses with these picks, and we're gonna split them into two. We're gonna start doing that. New show, new logo, new name, new segments. We got to
New
start
logo,
doing
new
this.
ass.
New logo, new ass. Oh my gosh. Uh-oh, you've allowed yourself to become defined by one genre. Joining Kappa Kappa Gamma. They, they we've got two sets of picks. We're gonna split them up. It's going to be, and obviously this will be less important during the summer when they don't apply, but we're gonna pick the local teams, that half dozen, either straight up or against the spread, whatever you want to do. So, hey, the Tigers playing the Blue Jays in this case. Who you got? And then the second pick or the second set of picks is going to be actual betting picks. So make sure to bet responsibly. Call 1-800-GAMBLER if you need it. But we are going to hand out some online betting, or you don't have to bet online, but betting opportunities here coming up. We're going to start with that Tigers Blue Jays game. Last I saw before the show started, the Jays were -1.5. Do you like that? If not, straight up, who you got?
Are you talking tonight's game?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, I wasn't looking so much at the run line, more of the over under at 8.5. I think if Manoa's actually on the mound, and it
Ooh.
sounds like Kenta Maeda is too, it sounds like a lot of runs coming our way. Whether it's on both sides, whether it's on just one, which seems to be the case for the Tigers right now. I kind of looked more at that one. I don't know.
Okay.
I do always struggle with picking my team or not, or betting on my team, because I don't,
You don't
it's
have
like
to
one of
do
those.
runs. Who's winning tonight?
See, I can't. I mean, obviously, I hope the Tiger. I think the Tigers. I'll put it to you this way: I don't know about tonight. I'm not as confident tonight. I am confident that Reese Olson gets his first win at home tomorrow. It's a 1:30 Eastern time start against Jose Barrios. I think it's about fucking time he gets one, and I think he'll do it tomorrow.
You know what? I know we're supposed to be keeping records, and maybe because of that, we should be picking differently. But I'll go with you too. I'll seed tonight's game. We'll move on to Saturday. I like Olsen to grab a win too tomorrow. So we both got the Tigers. NHL picks. I know it's in MSG tonight. Whether it's against the spread or straight up, you got Rangers or Panthers taking game two.
I gotta go with the Panthers. I hate it.
Really
I hate it.
taking
They
another
just
one in
look
New York.
so they look so complete, and they looked so complete in that game. Not that the Rangers looked bad, and I think having Matt Rempe back will be.
Hmm.
What the hell am I saying? Yeah, no, of course I'm picking the Rangers. Are you kidding me? I've been riding the Rangers bandwagon all year.
I was like,
What
what
I don't
the hell?
the game one was a fluke. It was a good game until the end. Obviously, you can't have own goals at the very
Yeah.
end, especially like wasn't even an empty net, and we're somehow putting one in our own net. Um, but no, I think the Rangers even it back up tonight, and then tomorrow I do think the Stars even it back up with the Oilers. I'm looking at
Okay.
1-1 on both sides of the bracket.
Gotcha. All right. I like it. So, yeah. So, Alex picks New York and Dallas both to even it up. And then we've both got the Tigers. For the NBA, I think actually we've got an even series coming up. We're going to try to get this out by game time tonight. Whether or not it is, I think Minnesota gets its legs under itself, stabilizes, evens the series heading into Dallas. I think Boston does seed a game to Indiana, but I don't think it's till game four. I've got Boston going up 3-0. If what bets? I know you're betting a lot this weekend, Mr. Deimel. What's the bet that we should be tailing with you this weekend?
This weekend, I like Dodgers money line tomorrow.
What's
Um,
that at? Do you know?
so tomorrow being Saturday, if you're listening to this, um, by then, it'd be a gosh, let me look. It's a 7:15 start, so hopefully
Okay.
we'll be out by then. It's a Hunter Green versus Walker Bueller. Dodgers money line is -150. Um, obviously, and they're facing the Reds. Hunter Green's on the bump for the Reds as of now, who was decent in his start against the Dodgers less than a week ago. But other than that, he's 0-2. He's given up now a total of 10 earned runs in 3 starts, taking 2 losses. And Walker Bueller is, as everybody would think Walker Bueller is. I just had it, but he's like I think 2-3 with a 2.7 ERA against the Reds. So we're riding with the Dodgers tomorrow night, and then I guess back to you for pick of the weekend / pick of the week.
So I cooked something up. I've got Luca's over for tonight. So really hoping we can get this out by the time that game starts. I know I should probably be looking later in the weekend just to make sure we get the pick in for something you can tail if you're listening or watching. Luca's over under for points at 29.5. I like the over, and I like pairing it with the alternate Luca line of 7.5 assists. His number is at 8.5 right now. I like take that down one, 7.5, take the over. So over Luca 29.5, over Luca 7.5 assists combined plus 140. It's where my money is tonight.
So here's my question: is obviously new, new show, new us, all that. We're gonna actually start tracking our picks. We've got what is it? It's May right now.
It's May, yeah, 24th.
Do we need to set like some type of stakes on this? Like whoever's got the better
Oh.
record at the end of the year?
Ooh. We'll figure it out. I feel like we got to come up with something good, and we'll be
Yeah.
back with something next week.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
that is a
and then
great
again,
plan.
listeners, if you have any ideas for that, let us know in the comments. Always drop a like, subscribe, whatever platform or social media you're on. Tell us we're stupid. If you think we're stupid, tell us you agree with us. If you agree, we're all ears. And this is why I should let you do the outros because you're 10 times better at it. So
I like the idea of making one of us wear an OSU jersey, but I don't want to have to do that. So we'll figure it out. We'll get back to you.
why do we want to torture each other in that
Isn't that
way?
the whole idea? This
Oh,
is, depending on the way you're keeping track, either episode 1 of Pure Michigan Sports or episode 9 of this wonderful show we call home. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in 1 week. It's been Pure Michigan Sports.